Welcome to our second roundtable episode on Ladies Talking Love. In this episode, we talk about how our family of origin and the media can shape our views of sexuality. I hope you enjoy. It's Ladies Talking Love, a community of women uncovering more joy and fulfillment in sex as we learn from experts and amazing women like you. Together, let's create a world where women's sexuality is celebrated and understood, beginning with our own. I'm your host, Ariel Finlinson. Let's talk love. Before we jump in, I just wanted to thank you for being here. Thank you for helping be the change that we hope to see in the world. If this podcast has been meaningful and helpful for you, I would really appreciate if you could share it with your friends and family and also leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. As always, let's talk love. I'm so excited to welcome Kayla and Lauren onto Ladies Talking Love today. We're going to be talking about some of the cultural or familial or religious norms that have kind of affected our sexuality as we went into marriage or sexual relationships. And what we talk about today, we probably will talk about our origin, and we are definitely not wanting to bash on our parents because we know that parents are doing the best they can with what they have, but we do want to be really open and honest with our experiences. So I hope that no one feels like we're bashing on our parents, but we're gonna do the best we can to say what it was like when we were growing up and how those things affected us. But I'm gonna go ahead and let Lauren introduce herself first.
I'm Lauren. My husband and I have been married for almost 7 years. We have a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son, and we live in Boise, Idaho. I like to bake and try new recipes. I also really enjoy watercoloring and kind of do that on the side. And I picked up reading again, which has been so nice.
My name is Kayla. My husband and I have been married almost 11 years. And so it's been interesting that our 10th year of marriage, we lived a whole year in almost quarantine together because he's still working from home. We have 2 daughters, ages 5 and 7. I teach high school health and English. I teach online for students all across the state of Idaho. And I also love baking, and I also love eating the treats that Lauren brings to me. That's another hobby of mine.
We've got a good exchange going on.
Sounds like I might need to move to Boise. I like free treats.
Do it.
Seriously. Can you guys just give me a little bit of background about what your kind of thoughts or beliefs around sex were before you got married?
I think I had maybe not quite the norm experience. My mother was so open. And so I feel like I had a good idea. And then also being in like the education I'm in, health education, I had a professor who I took a women's health class, and she was so open. And so my 2 main role models taught me to be so open. So I really felt like I had a good understanding, obviously, minimal, but I felt like I had like a good idea of what I was getting myself into.
What were some of the things that they taught or they talked about to help them be open? And also, like, what did you understand?
So I knew that like it was never like an embarrassing or bad thing. My mom was really good about teaching me that like it's supposed to be fun and connecting. And I remember my sexual health teacher telling me like, it's not something that you hold against, like if your husband doesn't do this, you don't withhold sex because of this, like never use it as a weapon. And it was just really made me think like from what I like saw in the media and things like that, it made me realize that sex was so much more besides just the actual act, but so much more about a connection and something fun and enjoyment, which I really hadn't realized until they were teaching me that.
That's really cool, though, that they taught that, because I think that's where a lot of the media and some of our views of sex, they miss out the whole point. Like, it's not just the act of sex. It's all these things around it.
Yeah.
What about you, Lauren?
Well, I think it's amazing, Kayla, that you had that experience because I don't know. And I feel like maybe I'm more common. So growing up, my parents, like you said at the beginning, I think our parents really tried to do the best they could, especially just with their generation. I think it was more of a taboo topic. So I think my parents would have been fine with me asking questions and trying to understand more about sex, but it was never something that I felt comfortable about because it felt like it was just a topic that was always pushed under the rug. And so going into marriage as a virgin, I knew sex was a good thing. But for me, it was always more about you have sex to have children. I mean, I knew that there was another reason for it and that it was a good thing and a way to connect with your spouse. But I never, expected it to be so great, I guess. And such an opportunity to like discover who I am as a sexual being with my husband. I never, I guess, realized that that was something that I could do.
So was that transition hard? I want to hear from both of you because you both have these different experiences before you went into a sexual relationship. Was it hard to adjust?
I think for me, it wasn't as hard as I expected it to be because I was in a program where I had taken a really great marriage prep class, actually. And the professor was the most open person that I had experienced at that point. So and it's funny that it was a man, but he was the first person who taught me even like that lingerie would have been okay. Like that was something that I hadn't even considered. And so by the time I married my husband, I felt more comfortable. I still didn't know everything or felt super comfortable with myself, but I felt like in the years after moving away from my parents that I had learned a little bit more to prepare me more for that relationship.
So what were some of the things that shifted from moving away and like taking this class, having a couple years before you got married? Can you pin down some of the views or things that shifted that made it easier for you?
Well, I think one of the things was that I actually had a roommate who was super open about everything. So she, I think, just helped me realize that there was more than one way to do things, just generally, like not even related to sex. And so I realized that, I can ask questions. People will answer questions. And like I say, I was in a family life major. And so I just learned I don't really have anything that I could pin down, I guess. But I was just exposed to a lot more information than I think I was while growing up.
And I think that though in itself is huge benefit because I think when we're exposed to a lot more, then we go into something more open-minded, which sometimes when we only have one view, at least for me, you go in and you're like, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. But just like seeing this array, which I love having you both on because then we get this huge spectrum of life experience to learn from.
Right.
What about you, Kayla?
I mean, obviously it was still a learning curve going into marriage, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, and you can only prepare so much for that, right? But
like childbirth.
Yes, exactly. You don't know. But I was so grateful that my mom and the teacher I had were so open with me because it allowed me to be open with my husband and just like, well, this is just like the natural step, like my mom prepared me and then this and this. And so it just felt natural then to take my questions and my concerns to my husband. But I mean, of course, there was still like a little learning curve in the beginning, but it allowed me to feel safe and to be okay with communicating,
which is huge, especially with something so new.
Yes. Yeah.
I know for me, I grew up in a home where I knew it was supposed to be good. Like that was definitely portrayed, but kind of like Lauren, I feel like just it wasn't an open conversation.
Right.
And so there was a lot of natural shame that came with it just from the way I was taught to like dress. And so going in, I knew it was supposed to be good, but for me then the media had really affected my view of it because I really thought that sex was more about just kind of attraction and bodies,
right?
Instead of like this connecting thing that it's about me as a person and my spouse as a person and us connecting. So how did the media affect you guys at all going in, or were these other views from your parents and teachers stronger than that?
I think that a lot of my misconceptions came from the media. Even now I will watch like a movie and I'm like, what? Like, that's so not how it's happening, and just things that like I didn't pick up on before I was married because I didn't know, but I just expected, like it would just happen and my husband would always be ready and like there's no stress or there wouldn't be a baby crying and we'd all, it was just so bizarre to me. Or I'm like, well, what are you doing afterwards? I'm like, what are they doing? Just so different because I had no idea, and so the only things I had really, my mom was good about communicating and teaching me the basics, but from what I saw, a lot of my main misconceptions came from the media because it's just not accurate and true what they show when there's not a lot of that connection or the buildup or just like that true intimacy that I'm glad that is a misconception that I didn't realize would be so important and which makes sex such a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of intangible, right? Like that's something that's hard to explain.
Right.
And yeah, so I think like logistically, the media, I mean, things aren't always as spontaneous, or every time you have sex, it's not this big, incredible thing. And it's messy. And like, there are so many things that they never even touch on.
Right.
But I like that you said that intimacy is so much more than that. And that's what can really make sex, the actual act of having sex, even more incredible.
And I think that to me is the biggest shame, because especially when I look at my children and just younger generations than me, I mean, I guess I was young too, but like, I missed out on that. And I can see why for a lot of kids, they think that sex is a really great thing to have in high school because they don't understand that there has to be this foundation of love and support and being with each other in the hard and the good and the bad and the ugly and all this that then makes sex beautiful and bonding, instead of just like, oh, if I'm attracted and I like them, like this is going to be great. And then not realizing some of the hard effects and emotional hurt that happens when your life isn't connected and committed to each other.
Absolutely.
It just is so sad to me. What are some other things we talked about, like, needing more connection and how messy it is? What were some other misconceptions you guys went into marriage with from the media?
I think the thing that makes me laugh now that I'm married is it always seems like it's such an easy thing. I don't know. It just always seems like, oh yeah, we're in the perfect moment. And like Kayla said, there's not a baby crying. There's not a 2-year-old coming in the door. Like there are just all of these things that you can't plan for. I mean, sure, you can have spontaneous sex and it's fabulous, but is that a reality every time? I don't think so. So I think that's the thing that I guess makes me laugh the most about media these days.
It's like music starts playing, the stars come out. It's like, that's not real life. Okay.
Every time.
No.
Yes. It's so what has sex been like in real life then? Like, how have you worked through some of these things of there aren't perfect moments? Rarely. And spontaneous sex happens, but not all the time.
Yes. I think the beautiful thing is when you are in a committed relationship and both of you are striving for the same thing, like you're so glad all those misconceptions are wrong, right? Because it's so much better than you could have imagined when you have that foundation, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is why, this is why we're told to wait, and because there's like so much to it, and it's not just bodies, right? Like you said, like it's really our souls and something special that you share. And so like I was like flabbergasted, I guess, that there was so much more to it, and that this really connected me to my husband in a way that no one else could or would. And it just felt so special. And seeing it just portrayed all over the media, it's so desensitized and it's no longer special. It's just like, well, sure. But it makes it so special. And so that's what I was grateful that it wasn't like the movies, like it was so special just to us.
Yeah. I agree. And it's so sad how it's just been desensitized.
Yeah.
What about for women though? I know from my own experience that it didn't come easy, like especially orgasm and being able to be in the moment. And just because of these views and my communication wasn't great, there was a lot of pain and hardship that came. What were some of your journeys of figuring out orgasm, figuring out pleasure? Because it usually takes women longer, and that's just a fact of life. And how do you like accept that? How do you figure out your body? I would love to hear some of your journeys on that.
So for me, I think I even talked with my husband about this kind of leading up to this interview, is that when we were first married, I didn't feel super comfortable as a person, just generally. Like I didn't feel as self-assured or as confident as I do now. I felt like everyone else around me had their lives figured out. Even when I met you, Ariel, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a girl, like she's got it all figured out, which is so funny because none of us do, right?
No.
And so I think for us, kind of the biggest hurdle was just becoming comfortable with who we are as individuals and realizing that we can grow together and improve together. Like Kayla said, we're both patient and excited to move forward. And so I think once we kind of, I don't even know when that happened, it kind of gradually occurred over the years. But I feel like we've kind of come to a place now, I mean, nearly 7 years into this, where we are together on this and we're able to communicate. And I think it just comes, at least for me, with having self-confidence and realizing that it's not going to happen right away. It wasn't easy to start with, but we were willing to put in the time to make it worth it and to have it be a really valuable thing in our relationship.
I think that point is huge about being your own self. And I think that was actually a huge factor in my marriage, was that in the way I had been raised and just some of my views, even not necessarily from my family, but just my religion or whatever had come in from my culture, I kind of viewed myself, once I became a wife or a mother, like I was supposed to fill this different role, and I lost myself. I didn't really know myself going in because I hadn't felt super empowered as a woman to seek out my passions and really learn about myself. It was more like, well, you're going to get married one day and have a family, and then I had this view of what that was going to look like that I had to fit into. And so when I entered it, I didn't know myself, and I think that was a huge drawback in my sexual relationship, because being your own self is a huge part of bringing that self to your relationship. If you can't know yourself and love yourself and accept yourself, I really think you can't accept that love from your spouse and let them love you, and to kind of come into this place of knowing myself and what I want was also huge then in sex, to be able to be like, okay, this is what I want, and to be able to say it and be there, instead of just like, well, I guess this is just for my husband and I'll show up, to keep him happy, which is that was also another media view for me, but and cultural view. But
Yes.
it's just so, I love that you brought that up, Lauren, because I think knowing yourself and really coming to know yourself, and that it's a partnership, that you and your husband get to work together, and it's about both of you, is huge in this journey.
Well, and what you said reminded me, I've also been thinking that, why is it, at least this is how I felt when we get married or when we reach that point, it's like, cool, this is the finish line. You made it. And so now you have everything figured out. It's like this big magical thing. And now you have all the answers. And so to get married and not feel like I had the answers, it was really confusing. But thankfully, like, my partner was really great about, slowing things down and like, let's work through some of this, over the next couple of years or whatever, how long it took.
Yeah.
My mom said something that, like, I think she said it as like an offhand comment when we were engaged, and I was obviously excited. And she said, don't worry, because sex only gets better with age. And I was just like, oh, gross, Mom, like, please don't tell me that. But it's
you're so glad she did. You're so glad she did.
I'm so glad she said that, because I realized the past, 11 years, it's been such a journey, and it really, there's highs and lows, and there's times when childbearing years, and when I was up with a newborn, that looked very different than where we are now, and looked very different when we were newlyweds, and just kind of trusting the process and having open communication, and then just understanding my body and being okay with, telling my husband like yes or no, or, and just being like, well, that's okay. And that's fine for him to say to me too, we're safe with each other. And so I can tell him what I like and what I don't like. And then I always had this in the back of my mind, like, well, my mom says, like, it's just going to get better with age. And it's true, as we come to be more comfortable with each other, and we've created a life together, and we have kids, and it's so much better now. And I can't wait until I am, 40, 50 years old, because as long as you keep working on it and you keep the communication and trust and safety, then I think it really does just get better. And it is a journey, just like our life is.
And I know for some people, it can be a struggle with that you become comfortable, and then it's like not as exciting. Do you guys have things that you do to keep your mind open and be able to keep it new, even though it's not, and keep it growing?
One thing that's worked really well for us, and we actually just discovered this app, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, but there's an app called Intimately Us, and it's a pretty self-explanatory app. There's ways you can set up like reminders to do like a little thing every day to help grow your intimacy. And It specifies, whatever love language, you can kind of narrow it down to what your spouse's love language is or whatever. Anyway, so this app has given us a lot of great ideas to kind of shake things up. Our favorite part of the app has actually been these lists of questions or different conversation starters where we can have these conversations out of the bedroom in a calm and open environment where we're pretty vulnerable with each other. And we can talk about our likes or our dislikes, different goals and ideas or new positions or whatever it is. And having those conversations have really changed our trajectory over the last year. And I feel like we've just been more intentional about our sexual relationship, and we've grown closer together that way. But also just keeping communication open and like being willing to try, I don't know, new positions or something like that. It's a way to kind of keep things new, I guess, and just kind of keep that excitement.
And I think that's so beautiful to go in and be like, okay, we're going to try something new. And you might be like, I hate this. We're never doing this again. But you might be like,
exactly.
Like, I don't think I'd like this. Let's try this again. And I think that open-mindedness is just beautiful to keep it alive and growing.
Yeah. And if things don't work, I mean, there have been times that we just stop and we laugh about it for a minute and then we go back to what we're used to.
I've noticed too that when, I think life gets like pretty mundane anyways, and I noticed too that if we are getting in the habit of something or like that it actually like really helps changing what we're doing outside the bedroom, like maybe spending more time like going on a date or going on a walk or playing a board game, just like something that like slightly changes up the schedule, because then it makes things seem more fun later. Does that make sense? Like I realize that sometimes changing your normal routine will automatically kind of flow into that aspect.
That's cool. I hadn't thought about that, but I think that's just to kind of shift it up and then be like,
yeah. And I mean, it's been really tricky because like I said, my husband has worked from home a whole year, and so our lives look pretty, similar day to day. And so like, if we get crazy and play a game of sequence, a board game, but just like having fun and like remembering like, this is why I fell in love with him. This is, like, and flirting throughout the day, like that helps so much. And just, it makes it feel so much more natural.
What are some things you do throughout the day to help it feel natural and to kind of keep the flirtiness going or just the connection?
Well, I have it easy because he's home all the time, right? And so I'll try to like make him lunch or like sit down and talk with him and actually like look into his eyes, or like a nice swat on the bum. Or both my girls are in school in the afternoon. And so we've been going on walks in the afternoon, and just like those, I'm amazed at just small connections throughout the day have helped so much. And he's pretty busy. And so when he was at work, at the office, I wasn't really able to text him, and I think that would be a good thing too. Just small bits of connection throughout the day can help so much more with your intimacy, because you just feel more connected all around, and it's not just one area, but like you feel more connected in every aspect.
I think that's a really good point. And I'm not very good at that. But when I do take a minute, like, will you hug me for just a minute?
Yes.
Like, I need this. And then we'll keep going. It does make a big difference just to have that minute of connection throughout the day.
Right.
As your journey has kind of gone on with sex, have there been some things that have helped you be able to be present, to feel pleasure and to accept pleasure into that relationship? Because I know for me, sometimes it's hard to focus, or sometimes it's even just hard to like allow myself to feel. I don't know why, but sometimes it's tricky.
I have always loved, I don't want to say her name wrong, Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife.
Finlayson-Fife.
It's a mouthful. Anyways, I love her, and I discovered her early on in my marriage, and an amazing resource to realize like, yes, you can feel pleasure, and like that's part of your role as a woman, like, and that, to feel pleasure is okay. And so I think kind of just like reading different resources or like podcasts like these are so helpful in like kind of like retraining your brain to do so. And one thing I've noticed too is, which is so much easier now that my kids are a little grown up, is just really taking time to be there. I heard that like different breathing techniques, change the way you're breathing, or simple things like that, that kind of put you more in the moment, where you're not thinking like, what am I supposed to be doing tomorrow? Oh, why did I yell at the kid? Really trying. Like I said, and it's way easier now because we're out of like the tiny toddler ages, but I'm really just trying my best to be mindful has been a game changer.
I know for me, it's helped to sometimes to say things out loud, like I'm feeling this, or I feel this, and just like, I feel your hand on my shoulder or whatever it is. And it's so helpful to kick my brain into actually feeling
Right.
what I'm feeling.
Right.
I love that idea.
I actually usually make my husband say it, and then I'm like, tell me what you're feeling. And then
I think that's awesome. This sounds like the most unsexy thing you can do, but I feel really, really great after I kind of spill my guts, I guess, and I tell him everything that's on my mind. And then I'm like, okay, now I have a clean, clear slate. Let's go on. I just feel more calm and in a better place to be able to have sex with him at that point.
The connection. I've had that happen so many times with me, like the ugly cry and the emotional, like, this is what I've been feeling all day. But I think that's the bread and butter, what we were talking about before, like that the media misses out on.
Totally.
When there's not that connection, there's not the fulfillment and the fullness that can come in your relationship.
It's almost cathartic to get all of that out. And then you just feel like clean or something. I don't know. You just feel ready.
And for me, I feel accepted too, even though I just told you all this horrible stuff about myself or about what I'm feeling. And I was like, you love me and you accept me.
Oh, yeah.
Have there been some cultural beliefs or religious things that have affected you going into marriage, into sex, that were hard to overcome?
I mean, I think at first I maybe, what do they call, like good girl syndrome? Like I really could not wrap my head around that we were married and that this was okay. I really felt like that was such a jump. No. Okay, go. It was like, whoa, like should we ease into this? It was kind of tricky, but so that was probably like the hardest thing I had to deal with. It's not bad. I'm so glad I did wait, and it has proved beneficial, but there was a little bit of, is this wrong? Because it's such a sudden shift, literally overnight. And I remember thinking like, are we really married? Did we this, like, wait, what?
A 15-minute thing changed everything.
I was like going through the day, I'm like, is that legally married? Or like, what did we, but, I think obviously over time that fades, but I can see, and I've talked to a lot of my friends too, that the same thing, like we're taught to be pure and clean, and it's so good. I'm so grateful for that, but it is a really hard shift to go overnight to like, all right, have at it, And so that was probably my main thing growing up in religion.
What were some things that helped you?
My husband reminded me we are married. Yeah, we got married. I was there. I really think I kind of like fell back like, okay, no, this is good. This is God given. Like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And practice makes perfect, I guess, just really being like, okay, it is okay. I get like pretty hyped up on my thoughts and really just like talking myself through, this is good. This is okay. Like, and this is good. And just realizing it's a journey, and it got better.
I just want to throw this in that I really hope we can make a shift in the culture though around that there doesn't have to be pressure to have intercourse the first night. Sex is so much more than that. It's things that are pleasurable. So explore together. What's pleasurable to you? This is a process. Take it where you're at and take time to get to know each other's bodies. Right. And if you're ready, awesome. If you're not, but like, both of you be slow with each other and figure out where you're at, instead of, at least for me, it was just like, okay, well, I guess the night of, like, this is when it has to happen, like the day I get married. But I think that could be helpful. It would be great.
You change it.
Well,
that's what we're doing.
Well, and I think that was part of, on our wedding night, we had kind of this moment of frustration, like, oh, this is maybe more challenging than we thought it would be. Like, this is something that should be easy. Teenagers have sex in the back of cars all the time. So like, why can't we figure this out?
How do they do that?
Okay. I know. And so I think, just shifting the culture away from, and we were thankfully, I guess, in the right mindset where it didn't phase us too much. And we were like, okay, it's going to be okay. Like, this is night one of eternity. We're going to be fine.
That is a super good mindset to remember. As I've loved this conversation. Thanks so much for all your input. As we kind of close up, I would just love to hear some of your thoughts on advice you would give to someone who's about to get married. Advice that you wish you would have known going into marriage.
The first thing I could think of is my husband is happiest when he knows that I'm enjoying myself. And so just be willing to be vulnerable and communicate and give it your all. And I think that brings a lot of joy and satisfaction for both partners.
I would say communication is key, like inside and outside the bedroom, and to feel safe enough. And it's okay to express what you want and what you like and what you don't like. And hopefully you have a partner that understands. And then I would echo the words of my mother, like it really does just get better with time as long as you're both working on it. And I think it's because you get better at it, but you also increase that intimacy, and like your hearts are really one, and it's a beautiful thing.
That is such great advice.
I just think also just be willing to be patient. Like you say, it gets better with time. So be patient and don't put too much pressure on yourself that it has to be perfect. Like any of the times that you have sex, you've got time. And so just be patient with yourself and with your partner.
And it's going to be a journey throughout life, ups and downs. And I hope, and I think it will continue to go up in the ups and downs as you learn. So good to be patient. That's awesome advice. Thank you so much, Kayla and Lauren. This has been really fun to chat with you both today.
Thanks so much for having us on.
I really enjoyed this second roundtable episode, especially debunking all of those horrible myths and portrayals that are shown on movies and the media. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. I would love to meet more of you on these roundtable episodes. If you're interested in participating, just reach out to me on Instagram at ladies.talkinglove, or you can always email me at hello@ladiestalkinglove.com. Thanks for talking love. Join the conversation at ladies.talkinglove on Instagram and tag your friends who would like to participate. You can also check out our website, ladiestalkinglove.com, where you can access each episode and join our exclusive newsletter. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Instagram or by email to hello@ladiestalkinglove.com as we learn together. Thanks for talking love.